a Noble Media Group member.
The world is very different now, for man holds in his mortal hands the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life.
6,000 years ago, man invented the wheel. 5,000 years later, he invented the printing press. 460 years later, he would fly. 70 years later, he would step on the moon. And 8 years later, he would send a spacecraft beyond our solar system. Today, we have computers which can think for themselves and robots that can dance. Properly utilized, today's technologies can bring an end to poverty, hunger, and even the need to work, or to make bombs that will end all life on Earth. Will we destroy ourselves or come together?
It is now 85 seconds to midnight. This is the closest the world has ever been to midnight.
Join Joe Carvin as he explores these questions, because mankind is on the hinge of history.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hinge of History. Welcome, Joe. It's good to be here again and deep dive and everything. We've got a great video that we're going to share today with everybody that I know you and I talked about, yeah, some really exciting stuff. We're going to do something. I thought, Joe, if it's okay, and just bounce a question. And folks, this is an apolitical show. We keep it that way for the most part, but this is our 250th year anniversary of the greatest experiment in mankind. And, I thought maybe for just a minute or two, Joe, we could just, I maybe ask you and we could bounce around. How do you feel about America? How do you feel about our country 250 years into this? Are you enthusiastic? Kind of what's your thoughts, my friend?
Well, listen, I love the nation. I love the United States of America. I tear up every now and then when I listen to the national anthem, so I'm very sentimental. I do wish, the nation wasn't so fragmented and opposed. I just got back from a conference online in London on the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship. So I'd like to see better citizenship. I'd like to see citizenship that's not as divided. I think the big strength of the United States, it's self-correcting mechanism, right?
Yeah,
I think we've made tremendous progress on race relations in the United States. Wish people to recognize it more fully. And again, we have to remember at our founding, we weren't as good as we needed to be.
yeah,
Uh, and again, what we did to the indigenous people in the United States, is a huge problem. So we have some challenges, but the goal is to overcome those challenges on a day-to-day basis. I think the free enterprise system is extremely strong. And I think one can make an argument our U.S. federal government is the worst run government in the world. So I think our political system's broken. And I think we need to fix it. And I think I'm hoping that men and women of courage and leadership and compassion and love will come together and unite around this nation. Maybe we can use this celebration. Maybe, I was wearing my Knicks shirt a couple weeks ago. I mean, the Knicks really brought New York City together.
yeah,
And I think people can really around something like that. So we need to find, Yuval Noah Harari talks about the new story. And we need stories, new stories to bring people together. So I think we need a new story for America, new vision that we hopefully can unite around.
yeah. I share a lot of the same positions, almost exactly as you do, Joe. I guess I've thought about this a lot, and I think yes, we have a lot of work to do. I think there's an incredible divide in our country right now. I don't know that it's the worst ever, but I mean, because I would think the Civil War would have been worse, but it's probably not far off. And if we could just stop and see that, we may not agree on everything, but we're all still in this great experiment together and working together and doing things right. If I was a founder and I was looking down from heaven and I was saying, okay, 250 years ago, we did what we did, would I see it as success? And I actually think they would. You brought it up. Slavery is gone. We've made tremendous work towards better. It still needs some more work, race relations. We all men vote now, all women vote now, and citizens. We've been one of the number one destinations in the world for most of our founding for folks that are leaving other countries. And in just the last 100 years, I mean, what our country has done, from putting a man on the moon, sending a spacecraft out of the solar system, and what we're talking about today, AI. I mean, our country has been the forefront leader in all of this stuff, and it's an amazing time to be alive. But I think you're right, Joe. It's our government needs a lot of work.
But what I would also suggest, as you say, if I was a founding father, I'd be very proud
Yeah,
because you couldn't it's look, it's an experiment in government, really the first ever, a nation governed by the people, and I think they would be very proud of what we've achieved, and issue the same note of caution that you and I are, that, hey, ladies and
yeah,
gentlemen, we need to appreciate what we have. I mean, I have to say, I was recently in Kenya, where the per capita income is 2,000, where it's 85,000 here. So, let's put things in perspective.
yeah.
At the end of the day, our problems are manageable, but we need to find ways to come together and stop demonizing each other.
I agree. Hopefully, we can do that. Will AI help us do that, Joe? I don't know. I guess we'll be
Yes, yes,
discussing
it
that.
will. Well, actually, that is one of my hopes. It's interesting you say that. I don't know how much your AI. My AI is very flattering. My conversations with my AI are fantastic. Oh, Joe, you good point, Joe. You're fantastic, Joe. Really smart, Joe. So, and as we think about it, Elon Musk talks about, imagine AI if it were your child, and it's like super smart. How
Right?
would you train it? How would you guide it? And how would you align its values with yours? So I do think AI may be a solution. We'll have to go further down the road.
As
But
long
today,
as long
go
as
ahead.
it makes me look smarter, I'm all for it. So there's
Well,
only you can only go up from here. So
there you go.
yeah.
Yep,
All
that's
right,
for sure.
Joe, let's get this thing going. Go
So
ahead.
today, yep. So today we're going to talk about. We want to go back a little bit to basics. People talk about AI,
Yeah,
but there's really four types of AI. And ultimately, I want to just get the basics down where people can understand them. In the next couple of shows, we're just going to go into AI basics. There's a
I
whole
love it.
new vocabulary being created. But so the old AI was, and we're going to hear from Jensen Wong, the CEO of NVIDIA, who's going to explain this in a second. But just to tee up the video, he talks about the first AI being perception AI, and that's sort of like Google search.
Right,
The second AI was ChatGPT, generative AI, where you're exchanging ideas with AI. But now we're talking about, then he talked about last November, 2025, he talked about agentic AI, basically where AI becomes an agent, it achieves some autonomy, it can exercise and implement tasks, as we'll talk about in a second. And then finally talks about physical AI is the next level, and that's robotic AI.
mm,
And again, if you remember, Elon Musk is saying uh, AI plus robotics will bring an end to poverty.
right.
But don't listen to Joe Carver. Let's hear from Jensen Wong if we could. He'll explain
Let's
it.
do it. We got a great video here, everybody. Let me get it rolling.
But I've also heard you talk about something else, the physical world and physical AI. Would you mind just giving a perspective on how this relationship between generative AI, the physical AI, and the platforms that NVIDIA is providing to Humane?
Well, over the last 12 years, we've both been involved in the development of the AI industry. Technology went from the first time you saw AI was perception AI. AIs that can recognize cats and words and sounds and speech. Perception AI evolved into generative AI. You can now use words to generate words or words to generate images, words to generate chemicals and proteins, generative AI. Then the third era, which is the era we're in right now, is AI technology that can reason. And the formulation, the application of that capability is agentic AI. AI that can have agency. It can use tools, it can reason, it can solve problems. essentially a digital robot that sits inside the computer. The next era, the era that we're working on now, is AIs that understands the laws of physics, the rules, the common sense of the physical world. That if you tip over a bottle, that it would fall. It would understand gravity and inertia and cause and effect and object permanence and occlusion and so on and so forth. The things that all of us humans understand common sense about the physical world. That next generation of physical AI, along with all of the technology that has already been created, could be embodied into a physical form. And that physical form would be robotics. So the era of AI is moving incredibly fast. We're in an agentic AI world today, and we're in the robotics world or physical AI shortly from now.
So we're in the agentic AI today, and we'll shortly be in the robotic uh, AI tomorrow. Wow.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. I know we got a lot to talk about on that, but it blows my mind when you think about that. Almost a superhuman robot um, that, in theory, I guess everybody would have, or most people would have access to. So amazing, Joe. That's a really good video in explaining it.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting that he gave that talk in November 2025. So basically, 3 years after ChatGPT. So ChatGPT really unleashed the whole AI revolution with what we call generative AI, where you can talk to your computer, get answers. Basically, for me, when I talk to any of the ChatGPTs, I'm talking with the whole of human information, the whole of human, and it comes back to
Hmm.
me with the whole of human wisdom. In fact, it's getting increasingly more difficult not to use the AIs, and I'm hard pressed to come up with an answer better than they come when I design my
Yeah.
programs and my curriculum. So it's really difficult. So that's generative AI, and that really hit its peak in 2025. But now this year, Brian, and I don't think Jensen Huang expected it to be as powerful as it is, but it's very clear that 2026 is becoming the year of agentic AI. And just to be clear, an agentic AI is a system that can perceive, reason, plan, and act autonomously on goals.
Mm, mm.
Multi-step workflows, tools used. In fact, as Jensen said, it's really a digital brain in your computer, right?
Right. Yeah. Right.
And so, and basically, what's happening is the there's this is the breakout year, and I've got some good numbers for you. So basically, Goldman Sachs and others expect that AI, this is the first year where AI native enterprises, that is, enterprises built around agentic systems, to emerge. So it's basically, they're talking about one human being can create a billion dollar company. So basically, the whole enterprise is AI agents. The second thing that's happening is adoption metrics are accelerating. Gartner, the computer consulting company, says predicts that 40% of enterprise applications will include task-specific AI agents by the end of 2026, up from
Mm.
5% last year.
Oh my
40 to 40.
gosh.
It's crazy. Now, and this has a huge impact on the demand for AI compute, because ultimately the AI agents are far more intensive than standard generative AI, because they run longer sequences, use more tokens, make multiple tool calls, iterate on plans, and often run continuously, right?
Yeah.
So ultimately, token consumption explosion. Goldman Sachs forecasts agentic AI will drive are you ready for it? 24-fold increase in the consumption of AI, or token consumption, from now until 2030.
That's
So
just
ultimately,
amazing. So we are into, we've talked about before, we are into that exponential curve, right?
thousands, yes, right there, baby. We're
Yeah.
right there.
Right.
Remember the
Yeah.
last five terms where they're in that exponential approaching infinite curve. 24-fold increase in AI compute, and ultimately, what they're saying is agentic systems can generate a million times more demand for AI than generative. a million times.
And wasn't Elon Musk was saying in one of our previous, he said that we would take and buy every single chip that they could make,
Yes.
and he said, but they can't make enough for us just to do so. We're going to create our own chip manufacturing out in space. Basically, is what he's talking about doing, circling the moon or
1000%.
something. It's just incredible. What a time to be alive.
That is exactly right. And again, there's a couple points. 1000%. I was thinking the same thing as I prepared today's show, Brian. And that ultimately, I'll buy everything.
Yeah,
And what he knows, he knows we're at this part of the curve, and there's no end in sight. And everybody that's involved, I mean, Eric Schmidt saying the same thing, all the guys that say it. So just to put some numbers on this, the global agentic AI market is projected to grow from about 7 to 10 billion this year to 324 billion by 2034, with annual increases of 40 to 49%. Again, compound 49%. We're way past. This is mega exponential. It's crazy.
gosh, it is crazy. That is crazy.
And so ultimately, and again, now 86% of organizations plan to spend on AI infrastructure impact. This is what you were talking about. Basically, infrastructure impact is there's basically creating unlimited demand for AI compute with no end in sight. Again, we're at the beginning, right?
Yeah,
We're still in the top of the first inning.
yeah. But we've also got to be approaching that, what you've called the event horizon, a point where we can't see beyond where we're at right now because it's accelerating too fast.
All right. So again, I think we could probably argue that this growth we just described, it doesn't take us to the event horizon yet. It approaches the event
Approaches it.
horizon.
Yeah.
But what Demis Hassabis said, and look, the other thing, the really thing that's interesting thing, all these guys are learning with us.
Yeah.
Demis Hassabis is learning right alongside us. Elon says, when I go to bed, I say, wow. I wake up, I say, wow, exponential wow. Remember that exponential
Right.
wow.
Right.
They're learning alongside. So Demis Hassabis, as we talked about last time, has always been the most conservative. He said 50% probability of the event horizon
Right.
or AGI in 5 to 10 years. So 2030, 2035.
And Dennis
Last,
Hassabis is who, Joe? Let me just define that. Dennis.
sorry, thank you. He's the founder of Google DeepMind. He's
Okay.
really the top guy in the world. He's been doing it for 15 years. Really the top AI guy in the world, or one of the top five, obviously. And so ultimately, he just accelerated his time frame from that rather conservative 5 to 10 years, 50% probability, to a very high probability between 2029 and 2031. Because he's seeing the same agentic evolution.
Yeah.
And the difference is, right? You talk to your AI, okay, that's fine. But if you create an agent, I'm desperate to create AI agents for myself. I want research agents. They're telling me I can do it. I haven't figured out how yet. But I'm going to create AI agents. They're going to research for me and come back and research for us, Brian. And so ultimately, everyone is going to be creating these digital robots, digital minds right in your computer. And that's going to create a huge demand and huge flourishing. And I think as Demis Hassabis watched this, right, he can begin to see that we're approaching much more quickly that event horizon you're talking about.
Now, would you, as you're talking about this and just kind of in steps, so the after AGI is basically the robotic when it becomes in a physical form, right? I mean, are you thinking that that is in 2030, or are you thinking that's after 2030 and we're probably another 5, 10 years away from that? I mean, what's the general consensus on that?
All right, so there's two components there, right? So you have the AI for robots, and then you have the robotics themselves, right?
Right.
And so this is the interesting thing. Elon, on an interesting recent interview, says all these software guys, they don't know anything about the real world. They don't know anything about the hardware, right? Said, you can't just invent, hardware.
Right.
And so that's his big competitive advantage, obviously. And so ultimately, those are two progressions. One is the AI progression, and the other is the robotic. Apparently, for robots, it's about the dexterity of the hand,
Hmm.
and the more dexterity they can get in the hand, the better. But I think they'll go in parallel.
Okay.
So I think the AI, well, look, Jensen Huang was surprised to see how quickly agentic AI was adopted. I would think, again, this is Joe Corvin off the top of his head
Yeah.
without any real numbers, but my expectation would be 27. Yeah, by 27, maximum 28, you'll have the AI part of the robotics. The robotics is the hardware part. And again, what you have to understand, and that's why there's no better window to the future than the stock market.
Right.
No better window because this whole new industry. I mean, this is great. I mean, when the industrial revolution was created, you couldn't watch it day by day, second by second.
Right.
You
Yeah.
can watch this industry being created overnight.
Yeah.
Overnight, this whole thing is happening right in front of our eyes, and so you have billions of dollars invested. So ultimately, my full expectation is that you'll have by 2030 you're starting to create robots that are well equipped with AI. So the two will be you'll have, and then the question is just how fast can they build them, right? But at the end of the day, no one's really thinking about this, but Brian, again, I always ask people, who's smarter, you or your AI? And they're like me. What? Who is the third president of Brazil? Come on. No way. So in terms of the traditional sense, knowledge, clearly the AIs are far more knowledge. You have the whole of human information right there at your fingertips. What they don't have is the autonomy. And that's where the agentic AI is the first step.
Mm.
They're somewhat autonomous. Now, you still have to program the autonomy, right? So we're still programming the autonomy, but they're becoming autonomous. And the more you program that autonomy, the more they become autonomous, the more they gain strength, et cetera, the longer they can think and do those kinds of things, the closer we get to AGI.
And then the closer we get, the more that we program, then at some point they're going to start programming themselves, right?
That's exactly right. That's why Anthropic called for their pause 3 weeks ago. And they said, guys, we need to get a pause. And that's why, if you remember Google, we talked about it last time, published their 67-page essay on the progression from AGI to ASI, artificial general intelligence, where they're just as smart as humans,
Hmm.
to smarter than the whole of humanity. And that when you hit ASI is the event horizon. Artificial super intelligence is the event horizon. So you might say 2030 to 2035 is the event horizon. Now, again, there's a genius from MIT, Dr. Alex, I can't remember his last name, who says we're in the singularity. And you remember Demis Hassabis said the foothills of the singularity. Look, we're close. And there's a guy who's a great, brilliant, brilliant gentleman, Imad Mostak, wrote a book called Our Last Economy or The Last Economy. And he said we have 1,000 days to prepare. Well, that was 200 days ago. So now we have 800 days left, baby. 800 days left, 2 years. And I think that's probably still the best guess.
Hmm.
And the interesting thing is, I was, as you was away, so talking to friends about this, very few people have still heard about superabundance and sustainable superabundance.
Mm.
How many conversations outside of this broadcast have you had on sustainable superabundance?
Well, I will tell you outside of it. I know what your point is, but let me just qualify it. I talk about this show all the time, so I,
Yeah.
I do end up talking about it quite a bit, but not because somebody else comes up to me and says, "Hey, Brian, what is superabundance?" Or let's talk about superabundance. It's me going, "Oh my goodness, if you're not watching this show and what's going on, you need to watch it because of where we're going in abundance and superabundance." And then, so I'm not the best person because I love what we're doing,
Right, right,
but
right,
it's
right.
you're absolutely right. How many people out there talking about it and they don't know?
No.
I mean, I can't. I mean, what are we, Joe, in talking about this right? What are we? A fraction of 1% of the world that
Oh,
even
yeah.
understands what this is.
Oh no, I'm telling you, it's hard to ever imagine, remember a concept so profound that's so little understood and so poorly understood.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the goal of the show. But I tell you what, I'm very encouraged right now, Brian. I had a great morning today. I want to brag on the Clarkstown educators.
Okay.
And their students, they've been teaching Future Ready, One World Future Ready, and AI for a number of years. And they had 2 students present on the Great Transition Challenge to Sustainable Superabundance. So at One World, for my educational enrichment program, we've launched a challenge because basically Elon and Demis and all these guys talk about a world without hunger, disease, and the need to work in 10 to 20 years, but they don't tell us how we're going to get there.
Right, right.
We're trying to do here. But these 2 students came up with an absolutely spectacular presentation. We'll post it on how we get from here to there. So that was today. And I'm also very pleased with my good friends in China. We had 3 students from China make the same presentation. And the kids are really switched on. Now, what's fun for me, none of them had ever heard of the concept sustainable superabundance before we started talking about it. But these kids are juniors in high school. And my goal is to have this conversation both here and with my educational program for the next 25 years. I truly believe that if we can keep civilization intact, that's the big if.
Yeah.
If we can keep civilization intact between now and 2050, no matter the political conversations, we will be able to create a world where everyone alive in the year 2050 will live better than the billionaires of today. In the same way we live better than the kings and queens of England past. Because our health will be 100 times better.
Yeah.
I forgot to ask the kids how long they're going to live. I'm thinking 120, maybe 120, 125. Of course, I'm 71, so I need that. I need that extra. I need those extra years.
Yeah, I know we're coming at the end of our time, but let me just say one quick thing to the audience. I rarely ever disagree with Joe, but let me tell you this one little part I do disagree with him on. If somebody comes up to you and says they're smarter than AGI, you can laugh at them off, except if your wife comes up to you and asks, who's smarter, me or AGI? There is one answer, and that is the wife, and that is the only answer. Okay, I'm trying to save the world here, Joe. I'm trying to save the world.
Hey, starts at home. It starts at home.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Noble Media Group. As of, I think this will be our last week that we will only be broadcasting on YouTube. Starting next week, we should be broadcasting on most major social media platforms. That is a big, big step for us. We're excited about it. But like this, follow us. If you've got a question for Joe, leave the question. Joe and I'll talk about it on air. We've got absolutely no problem about that. And as Joe said, we're all learning this together. Even Elon Musk is. And so it's an exciting time to be alive. Joe, I'm looking forward to the next meeting this next Tuesday. And between now and then, happy birthday, America. So thanks, everybody.
Yeah, happy birthday, America. Happy birthday.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next Tuesday.
You've been watching Joe Carvin's Hinge of History. The No Bull Media Group is available on all major social media platforms. Make sure to give us a follow where you can watch this show and many others.
A No Bull Media Group member.